for Spiritual Friends, a podcast live show where me and my friend Sarah just chat about all kinds of dope shit. We're going live literally right this second. She's brilliant. She's going to say something dope. I'm very excited. And it's about to come on and be very loud. 1 second. Okay, I muted that, and now we're live. We are live officially. I mean, it really caught like so much of what I was saying already on YouTube. Like I'm watching it come on, and I'm like, man, if y'all want to holler at us, hop in the chat, and we will be over on that. Oh, you're making a cute smiley face in the video on YouTube.
I muted myself while it was going live because also I'm changing my name.
Clever.
We never remember to do it at the beginning.
Before we do it, yeah.
I'm gonna say hi to all of our 3 people that are watching right now.
Oh, we got some viewers. I wish I could. Never mind. Yeah, 1 second. Still like kind of dragging on this. We're still technically live. I'm definitely gonna have to edit this tomorrow.
Have you been editing them?
Mm-hmm.
You have? On YouTube?
Yeah, just slightly. Just doing some tweaks here and there. That's
cool.
All. 1 second. I'm just sharing the YouTube link to the Patreon.
Oh my gosh. Not related to spirituality, or is it? I've been trying to make yogurt.
Make yogurt.
Yeah, and it's like not working.
What do you do in your life when things don't work?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's tie it back. Everything's coming back. All right, we're good to go. We're rocking and rolling. Thank y'all for staying with me. Welcome to your spiritual friends. Me and my friend Sarah. She is a spiritual friend. We'll be your spiritual friends, and we will just be doing some fun stuff, talking about some fun stuff. I've got 3 Jesus chats, 3 Jesus comments already in.
Already? Oh my God, this is exciting.
Everybody's just saying, JC, are you with me? Jesus Christ.
That's what they're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just a spam thing. I'm okay with that. Did y'all want to talk about Christianity? Because we can, because I've got a passion for it. I'm just, how has your week been, Sarah?
It's been good. I think it was like a strange week because we had Memorial Day and like having a day. Sorry, there's a dog at my feet and she's licking me and I don't like it.
I get that. Oh, that is Kirk Franklin. Yeah, somebody just told me that was a Kirk Franklin thing. Yeah, hop on over to.
What does that mean?
GC, are you with me? Oh yeah, we got the church. We ain't going nowhere. I know. It's a old gospel song. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I don't know a single reference.
I know it's okay. Yeah, even if you did know references, that one's a little esoteric. I totally get that. I apologize for interrupting you. I got distracted.
That's okay. It was just a weird week because it was the first week that I've been able to walk since pulling my calf muscle. And it was Memorial Day, and then my cousin was staying with me for a few days, and so that was like a fun party that I don't normally get to have. So it was just like not on my normal routine. And now it's, I don't know, Thursday.
Now it's Thursday.
Yeah, it's Thursday. So I don't know what that means.
I got back from our weekend. We went camping, and like obviously, because you know that they don't know that we went camping. And thank you for taking care of my cat again. I really appreciate that.
You're welcome. He doesn't want to hang out with me, by the way. I always think, oh, he's gonna want to like just hang out, and he doesn't. He's not into me.
Gotta bring you in to introduce you. Guys should just have some time together, just some like
Patrick
time. He loves you.
I mean, he likes it when I like feed him,
You
but he
know?
doesn't want to like get close, like, share secrets or anything.
Oh yeah, you gotta come over. You gotta end this. He's a big fan. I know he is. Somebody asked in the TikTok chat, your official Mary Magdalene position. I went camping at Lake Isabella in California. Um, my official Mary Magdalene position, is that a cool place to jump off? Maybe. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know if I have an official.
Wait, yeah, I was gonna say, do you also have an unofficial one? Like, what's your like unofficial and then like official
Right, my official
position?
I don't really have a Mary Magdalene position. Look, here it is. Here's the thing. I think when people ask that question, a lot of the time they've attached the idea to sort of a literal interpretation of the Bible. And so for me, I'm always curious about the sort of more esoteric, not so literal ideas behind that. And the challenge is that so much of the actual historical literal story probably lines up heavily with what's in the Bible. So we run into kind of weird crossover in trouble there. So that was a really convoluted way of saying I'm probably just not going to get into that tonight, only because it's I feel like it would require a bit more care than I'm willing to put in at this
Interesting.
moment.
Well, can we talk about it a little, like a little teaser? Only because I feel like I don't really know in depth like the story of Mary Magdalene, but I feel like just as sort of a lay person who like lives in society, my sense when people talk about her is like, is she a whore or not? And like, is it okay? Like, is her relationship with Jesus like kosher or not? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is that like, am I sort of like accurate in, I mean, I'm sure that's like extremely simplistic, but
No, yeah.
but there's also an element of her being maybe like a strong feminine figure too, yeah. But I'm not sure like in what, I feel like that's like the limit of my knowledge.
Yeah. I mean, look, man. Yeah, there's so much like all right, so one perspective that I think is interesting is probably based more in the sort of literal idea, which is that Mary Magdalene was likely a mystery school initiate that played a large part in initiating Jesus into the Essene Mystery School, or whatever mystery school he was a member of. And when I mean Jesus, I'm not talking about Jesus. I'm talking about Yeshua, the person that the Bible Jesus is based off of. So that's an idea that people toss around. I like it. I think it's interesting. I'm trying to like skirt this as best I can, because when we get too deep into that, the lines are just so blurry about what Mary Magdalene in the literal sense probably was and what Mary Magdalene is in sort of a symbolic sense. So those two things, it would take a lot of time. So I think we're going to skip that tonight.
Okay, fine. But can we do it next time?
I promise we will.
That's a really interesting, I mean, that's an interesting totopic. Well, even the question of like, what's your stance? Like, what does that imply? Like, what does that imply from the person asking?
Right. People, yeah, man. I totally
like get what that. Assumptions are being made in the question. Mm-hmm. So we'll just let that linger till next time.
We'll just let that linger till next time. Oh man, that's amazing. Thank you for being patient, Kirk Franklin. Oh my gosh, Jesus. We did. What did you say that you wanted to ask about? Oh, I am that I am, Yahweh. Mm-hmm. I think that's an interesting topic that I feel a little more. I mean, like, it I think is really a brilliant idea. It loosely translates to I am that I am, which I really like because it points to the isness of sort of everything. One of my favorite mystics, Neville Goddard, is big on that being essentially the code of the entirety of the Bible, and how that essentially is reflected in every single story that you read. Which is to say that like it's the sort of bedrock that everything jumps off of. Something that I find to be really interesting is think about the idea of I am that I am being the makeup of the material universe. Like everything that we can see, everything that exists within this the framework of I am that I am. And it's freakishly simple, but I think it points to the totality and the wholeness of beingness being enough, existence being enough. So when we are sort of, or rather, let's back up, because I think understanding that loop, it's a self-generating loop, right? The idea of I am that I am. Sort of the deity gives birth to itself, which is to say you are able to give birth to yourself. Rather, you are constantly doing that every single day. Your subjective internal reality, right, manifests out as that, and then you see yourself, or rather you see that, or rather you feel as if that is real, and then that returns to you, or rather when we become aware of it, it's a closed loop, right? I've chosen what I choose to be, who I choose to be, what I want to manifest in my life, right? I see it as real as humanly possible, like it's already done. I feel as if it's real, which is we break down Yahweh into Yod He Vav He. That's the Vav, is feeling as if it's real, right? I feel it in its totality, and then the last He is just a celebration of, oh, I am that. And so from a sort of more maybe a practical perspective, I think it's really interesting to look at, a lot of us tend to, when we're sort of materialistically fixated, a lot of the time, or rather over-identified with the material existence, we are running backwards, right? We're running on that, I am that, right? We're asking permission from the material existence to be, right? So we're looking outside of ourselves and going, that, I am that. And so we've sort of reversed it, and it creates all the suffering in our life because who we are being is contingent on our external reality, totally and completely. And so what essentially is like the crux of every story in the Bible is returning to the state of I am that I am, or feeling as if, or being able to sort of realizing that the entirety of your objective reality is manifested from you internally, right? Your subjective reality is manifest constantly. And that's what, your perception creates your reality, whatever. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. I'm a huge fan. And I think it's such a great, it's proper genius. And I think there's a
sorry, I don't know why. It's just making me laugh for some reason. Sorry, keep going.
No. I just think there's this like Rick and Morty episode there where he's like, Yahweh was just this mix between a Mesopotamian god and blah, 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 blah. I'm like, sure. But let's talk about the context of Yahweh being the latest shit of all time. And when we look at Jesus, though, right? Neville talks about Jesus's name being pretty much the same, or because Jesus is an anglicized, bastardized version of Yeshua or Joshua. Jesus's name contains, it's Yod He Vav Shin Ayin. That Shin means tooth or to consume. So the power in Jesus's name is the ability to consume an old state of being. Essentially, the challenge that's presented with Yahweh as sort of a model is nothing that is can ever not be, right? So nothing that exists can never not exist within God. If it wasn't, it wouldn't be God. It wouldn't be everything, right? You can't break infinity. It's just infinity. So Christ's incarnation gives you this power to consume, or rather, when things incarnate as humans, which Christ is the avatar of, right? He's this metaphorical avatar for what happens when the deity incarnates in human form. What's put into Christ's name is the ability to consume a previous state of being, right? The ability to die to a previous version of yourself and resurrect, as your ideal self. And that's really the beauty of Jesus. And truthfully, the Christ consciousness is the power of presence. Because when we're present, we're not fearing the future or regretting the past, that instantly consumes any old state. Our past shit we bring in, oh, I was this thing. No, I died to that. It's like it never happened, right? It's consumed in the fire, and I resurrect myself into the kingdom of heaven, or as my ideal. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the end, right? Like, what? I feel like you just encapsulated like everything in the universe.
I mean, Jesus saves, man. That's a bar. Like, I think when we get caught up in the idea of Jesus being like a real person, we miss a lot of shit, because it's a challenge. And the confusion that comes up, I think, is that like we when we're attached to this idea of Jesus being a real person, we can't see the forest for the trees, right? We're missing like every single miracle is him essentially looking at his material universe and being like, no, no, this is what it's going to be now. Oh, are you guys hungry? Cool. Here you go. Take this. I'll feed 5,000 of you. How? I'm not worried about the house. I just am.
It's interesting, like the shin and the tooth and the consumption. Like you kind of mentioned it, but like that is a product of time and space, right? Because like in everything, or like in we are that we are, that all exists at once. Like we live, when we're manifesting through the physical, we're confined to time and space. And so we have to consume, like, just because that's the nature of like, not everything can fit on the earth at once, like not everything. So we have to do it in these kind of like, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like
cyclical,
like or like a series, or like a one comes after the next. Because it can't exist all at once physically, even though it does spiritually.
Even though it actually does. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. The limitations of a sort of, the more dense we get, the more time and space tends to play a part. I think the challenge that we run into is just becoming obsessed with that the stuff, the sort of the nature of the density and the time and space.
Yeah, we like buy into that reality as the only reality, or the most important reality, or the most compelling reality, at least.
Fundamental is a word that I like. Right? We treat it as this fundamental reality, that's the thing that gets to, that's primary. And in truth, like, I think we even talked about this before, but like, I love when we understand, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, from the perspective of, for God so loved, right? everything, the world. For God so loved all of creation that he incarnated as all of creation. And whosoever believeth in him, or rather, whosoever understands themselves to be one with this creation, shall not perish, but have everlasting life. I think from the literal sense, it's like, for God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that who shall ever believe in him shall not perish. Like, from a literal sense, it seems like, well, Christians got it right and everybody else is fucked. And it's like,
right.
No.
Yeah, I mean, it really is like, it's like all these mystical texts, and I'm talking as if I've like read a bunch of mystical texts, but like seen through the eyes of the physical and the eyes of time and space and of the other and separation. It's like, yeah, you interpret it in one way, but when you can kind of like open yourself to like beyond that, you're like, it's not the same. Like, I feel like it just like reminds me of like when I was in high school and I would like think about God a lot because I was like very convinced that I wanted to be atheist. And I just thought, oh, God doesn't make any sense. And it's just here. And I was very, analytical and like very mental. And then when I sort of had like a spiritual awakening, I was like, oh, it's not the same plane. Like I was just thinking about it wrong, kind of like, it's not like, does it exist or not? It's like, no, that whole thing is like not even the thing.
That model is weird.
Yeah.
Fucking
right.
Weird model. Literally, somebody the other day, we were on a hike and somebody was like, it was God's plan for us not to have the baby at this time or something. And I'm just like, no matter what, people are constantly turning God into this like person in the sky.
Yeah.
Like they can't help it. You know what I mean?
Totally. Yeah.
That creates challenges because it creates a separation between you and everything else, not just God. And every Christian will tell you, like, what's hell? Hell separation from God.
You're like, yes.
Right. Where's God?
Yes.
Right? Like, and it seems odd because when you sort of get into a sort of a more mystical understanding of the Bible, it starts teetering on ideas that people in the church for a long time have considered, quote, blasphemous, but also casually agree to, which I think is fucking hilarious to me. Like, it's just like, yo, where is God? Oh, God's everywhere. God's in the sky, he's in the clouds, your DNA, God's everywhere.
Like,
Right. So what's that mean about
You're
you?
Like, yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
and then they just never get there.
Like, yeah, right. And then you're like, so what's that say about you? Right? Like, I think we when we had this idea that we're just like a soul and a husk of a body, and then that happy good soul goes back to heaven, it's like, it's weird. It's a little jank, I think. Something that I've been studying a lot of like tantric texts lately, and they're huge on specifically this is interesting, right? So spiritually, I think a lot of the time people who have experienced like spiritual awakenings and shit have inadvertently start playing by the exact same Christian model, this old religious model that people go through, which is to say that spirituality is this other thing, right? Energies and all this stuff is one thing, and the material world is the other thing. It's the bad thing.
It's hard to integrate it.
Right.
Or it's not hard to integrate it, but it's just not practice, or it's not, I don't know what to say.
Well, no, but like, it's the idea of like spiritual bypassing, like, right? Like, when we don't deal with the sort of material of our life, or rather understand it to be divine, it creates all kinds of limitations. Like, specifically, I think one of the most interesting ones for me is, when we were talking about this maybe earlier, but the idea of emotions, the idea of thoughts and emotions, because it creates a separation, right? These are good, these are bad. It's still playing in this sort of bifurcation idea, like, and that's when you get into like, I got to get rid of this bad thought and get a good thought in there, type shit. You know what I mean?
This is why Genesis, or yeah, why Adam and Eve, is Adam and Eve in Genesis, or is that a different?
Yes, Adam and Eve is in Genesis.
This is why that's my favorite story, because that's the beginning of that, right? Like, I feel like it's all comes back to that. And if you could just understand that one story, then you kind of can get all of it.
I think so too. Look, man, literally the whole thing is on the first days of creation.
Right.
In the beginning, or in beginnings, as it was originally written. Shout out to the Torah. Yeah, look, man, that's a bar. In the beginning, you know, on the second day, right, we create that idea of separation. That's the first time it happens. That's it. Myself and other. That's the whole thing. And we kind of keep going on down into the dissension process. Happens again. And there's one thing that's androgynous. We split it into two, male and female. He made them. Another time, take a bite of that apple. Once again, split it again. Good and evil. Wow, I just realized that totally reminds me of a Tao quote that really maps this. And I did a thing about it today on the Patreon. Shout out to the Patreon. Shout out to the Patreon. I swear to God, if I ever win like an award, I'm gonna be on stage saying the most ignorant shit. Yo, I want to give a shout out to my mom, my uncle, neat them. Like, this is gonna be ridiculous. So look, just remember what we just said. When the great Tao way or method ceased to be observed, benevolence and righteousness came into vogue. Then appeared wisdom and shrewdness, and there ensued great hypocrisy. When harmony no longer prevailed, the six kinships, filial sons found their manifestation. When states and clans fell into disorder, loyal ministers appeared. Literally, when the great Tao way or method ceased to be observed, like in the beginning, when there was like, after this undifferentiated consciousness splits, right? Benevolence and righteousness came into vogue. Good and evil, heaven, hell, all that weird shit. But then there comes shrewdness and wisdom. Well, let me tell you what the right way is. And there ensued great hypocrisy. When harmony no longer prevailed, the six kinships, mind you, there are some Bibles that literally started, in the beginning, there were six. Bars. Filial sons found their manifestation. When states and clans fell into disorder, loyal ministers appeared. When we create this idea of separation between us and everything in the divine, well, now we need a mediator. Now I need this minister to tell me, like, what's up? Like, how do I do it? What's the thing? And so I think it really points to that idea that you are in any way separate from anyone and everyone. Sorry.
Yeah. I feel like this is something I've been thinking about lately, is just like monotheism.
Yeah.
Which is always described as believing in one God. And I feel like people interpret that as like one versus many, rather than just like the one.
Yo, yeah,
many,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I think people do. I mean,
it's always like monotheistic, really, like you believe in one God, and it's like, which God do you believe in, or something? But it's like, wait, no.
Right. Yeah, those distinctions are ridiculous, and it's all sort of, once again, I'm always curious about people's interpretations of any of that stuff, because it's usually 10 times out of 10 from an over-identification with the material universe. We'll stop. Right. And when we do that, yeah, that's when I see a bunch of deities in Egyptian pantheon. I don't understand that they're inherently reflecting elements of nature, which are all identical, which are all essentially pointing to the totality or wholeness of one thing, which was the confusion of them. Over time, I think what happens is when you do have a lot of deities in the pantheon, the separation happens. Like we go, okay, well, people, or rather time just happens and people go, oh, well, I pray to this deity, I pray to this deity, so even in Egyptian lore, like Akhenaten, King Tutankhamun's father, Pharaoh Tutankhamun's father, excuse me.
How dare you?
How dare I? He had to come in and essentially try to decimate the pantheon because people were just paying the loyal ministers. All the ministers and people were collecting these checks, making a whole lot of money, having people pray to all these gods. And Akhenaten was like, hey, it's all one thing. Fuck all this. We're going one way. It's only about the Aten, which is literally everything. The hymn to the Aten is one of the first. It's essentially identical to one of the Psalms, and it's one of the first essential like spiritual texts that is just one of the most brilliant things ever. But he's pointing to this idea of wholeness. Now, he was likely killed for this.
Join the club, mister.
But he did his best. He did his best. Him and his wife and 7 daughters.
Do you think there's do you think that there's a way to learn this? Like, you know what I mean? Because it's like over time, everything has pointed to it, but that doesn't like teach anyone. Like you interpret through your own lens.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it doesn't really work to just like tell someone.
No.
And like the opening or like the awareness of it sort of, I feel like happens spontaneously. Like there's not really, I mean, maybe, I don't know, right? Because I've never been the one to be disciplined. So I don't know if you meditate enough, if you get it. You know what I mean? Like,
I do, man. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that.
I mean, that's the idea, I guess.
You know what? And here's the thing. I think older systems tend to a lot of this shit is built in, right? And like some of these older yogic schools specifically, I'm pointing to the ones like for Tantra and stuff, because that's what I've really been studying a lot lately. And I think the more we become acquainted with ourselves, the more sort of the perspective shifts in a different way, maybe. But I will say that like a lot of the quote information, I think it's a fractal. And I think the more you deal with yourself, the more you deal with life as it is, the more apparent all of this becomes, right? The more that I'm seeing, the more that I'm taking responsibility. And let's look at it from a kind of a step-by-step thing, right? I'm moving through my life through a state of unconscious reactivity when I'm over-identified with my material existence. That over-identification with the material existence demands that I seek outside of myself, and I am constantly in a state of lack. I'm in a state of suffering because it will never be enough. I need it to make me happy. I need it to make me whole. I need it to make me everything. Usually this doesn't work out for an extended period of time.
This is that I am that.
That period. There's a break. We have some sort of, usually in depression. It doesn't have to be that. You don't have to be depressed. You don't have to have that. You can just have a gradual spiritual awakening. But usually, most people tend to drop into a deep depression after they can't handle the paradox that my material existence can't give me everything, right? This tends to lead to moving from a state or learning methods of being within the state of taking full responsibility for your reality, right? I get to decide my reactions, right? That's usually one of the first things people learn. You have a choice whether or not to behave a certain way. That releases resistance. So if we look at the totality of our experience as from that sort of materialistic fixation, it's little tight resistances all throughout your body, throughout the day, millions of times. Somebody pulls out in front of you, resistant. I'm not in a state of openness or curiosity. I create that tension. And if it stays with me, it turns into like a samskara. Like it literally turns into these little traumas throughout our body, and we carry them around with them. The more we take responsibility for ourselves, the fewer of those happen. Everything tends to open up, and your reality truthfully begins to look like, oh, it's all about me. I get to choose. I'm not just becoming hyper involved with my thoughts, emotions. These are just natural things that tend to happen. I create space. And in that space, I think the perception shift is so total and complete that everything that we're talking about it's not that it's esoteric or strange, it just is, right? And you've felt that, when you pick up a book now and you're dealing with, you're like, oh, that just is. Right? It's a reflection of you. So you become the gateway, the tool. Of course, there are teachers and books and all kinds of stuff that you can point to. But at the end of the day, we both know people who are intellectually looped into that, but it's not their experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when it starts to become your experience, then it not only recontextualizes your own life, but it recontextualizes the way that you deal with everything.
Yes. And there's something that you said in it that I kind of got hung up on, which was like in a good way, like what creating space. And I was thinking like what exists. Like, I almost feel like it's like, it is what exists in that space that like allows for the awakening to occur, right? Because like that space is potentiality, it's creativity, it's chaos, it's everything. Like it's because even if you think of like on a cellular, like an atomic level, like they always talk about how it's like an atom they never are actually touching each other, and it's like in the density, things are dense. They're a little bit slower, stuck, harder to move, to change. But it's the space between the density that like allows for that change and that movement. So like even having space between your thoughts and your observer, it's like that, like that's where that is like allowed to come in, or even a space of unknown or curiosity is like often the space where that wisdom will come in as well. So it's like, I don't know. So I just hit me as profound.
I totally agree. I think that the space is mind blowing. It's the whole thing, right? Like that's a shower thought. It's the essence of a shower thought. It's like I take
totally
the space to not be so attached to the material of my fucking life. I'm so obsessed with it. And the challenge that then arises though, right? I think that we talk about this a ton, is negating the physical existence altogether. Well, I'm spiritual now. Totally. Like that's the rough thing. It's like, oh, I was so obsessed with my material existence, but now I gotta go back into that. Like I think it creates this challenge for people where, because not only do you, when you do sort of inadvertently out of pure survival, you usually create that space when you have your awakening, but once you have that awakening, your mind sort of recontextualizes and constricts back around spiritual concepts, and we turn spirituality into something unto itself, right? So that becomes another challenge to let go. And even in letting go of that, a lot of the time, another phase of that integration is going, wait, all of existence is spiritual.
Yeah, right.
It's
almost like a practice, like a constant practice of like spaciousness.
Yeah.
Like I almost feel like that's, or I don't know, like, or even a spaciousness within the density, or like being in both at the same time,
Yes.
or something, like, I don't know.
Yo, I think that paradox is the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Like needing the space, or rather holding that space, but also being present in your life. Like that, I think, is the interesting paradox that we essentially reconcile through, practice, through being. Because when we are sitting in that space, that means we're not getting attached to a spiritual concept. We're not getting attached to a guru. We're not getting attached to an idea. We're not getting attached to our material existence. We're not getting attached to a crystal or a system, right?
Yeah.
It's the understanding that everything resonates on this level of interconnectedness. Big fan of yogic systems that point to that, because I think a lot of the time, especially a lot of the challenges specifically in Judeo-Christian faiths, is this inadvertent sort of separation between the spiritual and the mundane, as it were. And I don't think that it really is meaning that, obviously. I think that it's truthfully using words that, see, and that's the challenge of the English language. Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, really though, like, I feel like the language is so, like, part of why it's hard to experience it is because there's no like words to talk about it, and you have to like use a ton of words and like metaphors and like explanations and be like this, but not like this, or like this, like,
yeah,
to even be like, are we talking about the same thing here?
I saw a Sadhguru video the other day and it made me so fucking happy, just because I don't think I've ever seen him go like, we're not really talking about it, we're talking around it.
Yeah, right.
But we can't ever really, and I mean, obviously he knows that, but I've never even seen him said it. And it was just so
Totally.
baller the way he did it. I was like, yeah, like.
Which is like why also in Judaism, like they don't say Yahweh, or like they don't say, like they say Hashem, like the name. They don't say the name of God. And it's like, oh, it's like so sacred to say it, but like, what does that mean? But it's like, I think that's like why, because it's like
100%.
Because you just can't really, you can't talk about it and maintain the like essence of it. It's like it becomes and like it becomes a concept, or it becomes I wish I had like the words all stayed in my brain when I needed them. Like it becomes something where you like pull out one part from it. Help me, Jesus. Where are you when I need you?
When you pull one part out of it, I don't know. I'm sure you'll
like an abstraction.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jesus.
Jesus is on it. Yeah. The Tao that can be described as not the enduring and unchanging Tao.
Yes, you say that every time, and it's true each time.
It's so true. You can't do it. Like, it's just, you can't, doesn't make any actual sense. So yeah, I think that's really great that they don't do that. I think we'd be better served in Christian faith if we weren't constantly being like, God. I once got in trouble for not capitalizing the word God in Christian school growing up. It was so fucking funny to me. I was like, okay. Even back then, I was like, okay.
I love saying the word God. I feel like there's like also like knowing that you can't talk about it, like almost purposefully abstracting it, is fun.
Yeah.
Personally. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh man. I wanted to talk about relationships. Maybe there's a way to do relationships and God. I think something that's been coming up a lot lately through Patreon and all this stuff is essentially, I think when we're moving from a state of interconnectedness, this state of wholeness, that really changes the way that you go about every relationship in your life. Specifically though, I think romantic relationships are incredibly helped by not needing your material existence to validate you, to make you whole. And Sam said this thing on the live. I was doing a live this weekend, and Sam, I was like, somebody asked, well, if I'm complete and hold on to myself, like, what's the purpose of even having a relationship? And I'm like kind of talking around it, whatever. And Sam's like, just casually, who says it has to have a purpose? I was like, this bitch.
Love that.
She's the best.
I love that.
That's a bar. And I'm like, yes, dude. I mean, like, and she's like, what's the purpose of life? Like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, yeah, dude. So much of how we deal with our relationships is we create this weird idea of a purpose of like, oh, my relationship, I want to be in a relationship because, or so that I can blah, 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 blah. Right? What do you want from that relationship? And I always ask people that question. That's the first question. I'm like, okay, so like, what do you want to get from that? Right. And that people are like, well, I think it's normal to want to get something from blah, 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 so on and so forth. But I'm like, sure. But, right, we're still creating this weird expectation of what something should be. And it's always going to underlie your relationship. You're not going to be able to be present with this person about what it could be. It's weird.
I mean, that's the case in everything too, not just romantic relationships too, like job, like anything you do in your life. I feel like there's so much about purpose and like, what's the purpose and like, why are we here? I feel like that was such a big question in like the sort of early days of my spiritual process. Like everyone was, what's your purpose? Why are you here? What did you come here to do? Like, why? Like, yeah, there is such an emphasis on that. And it's like, it feels like a good question to ask, but yeah, I mean, when it really comes down to it, it's like just trying to like have a good time. Like, I don't know, just like I'm here and I can't help it. I mean, really, that's what it is, right? Like we were just born and we can't help it.
No, but facts though, right? Like I think we talked about this maybe before, but like Soul is like a great example of that. Soul, he was like, he thought that his purpose in life was to be a jazz musician, and that's why he came to Earth. And they were like, nah, you just go when you want to exist. That's enough. And I'm like, that's enough.
Yeah.
There was this like there's a book that came out. It was like really big in the Christian community when I was a kid, called The Purpose Driven Life. I don't think I ever actually read it, and I'm kind of glad that I didn't. Okay. I think it was like one of those books like everybody's like, yeah, you read that? Yeah, man, I read it. It was great. Like it was great. But the more I find in my own life that I'm getting to do things that I feel like align with me, that I just feel like right for me, the less I give a fuck about the idea of purpose. And the more it seems like everybody else wants to do that for me. And I'm watching and getting to listen to everybody else be like, well, it seems like you're blah, 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 purpose, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, to quote the homie JC, you have said that, right? I'm always telling people, let somebody else deal with that purpose shit. Like, let somebody else figure that out. Because if I'm thinking about like constantly being like, am I on my purpose? Is this my purpose? You know what I'm not doing? Paying attention to the what the fuck that I'm doing.
Yeah, totally.
Right? Like I'm just
right, because it's always like a future projection or a projection of like grandeur in some way. I don't even know like if that's on a timeline necessarily, but like yeah, it's outside of the present moment. Yeah, because like whenever I don't know, like when you're doing stuff, you're just doing it, right? Like if you're like, oh, my purpose is to like help people, but like in the moment when you're just talking to someone, like you're just talking to them and like sharing a moment. It's not like I am living the thing that God put me here for or whatever.
I totally agree. Sorry, I have to.
That's fine.
Lock somebody
yeah.
Chat. There was somebody like popping off in my chat.
Oh, really?
Weird stuff. Yeah, man. I'm like, we got enough followers. We gotta block people now. Let me chat out.
Oh, cool. Big time.
My dude was going way too hard. I don't know. He was like spamming the chat with some weird stuff. Where the moderators at?
Yeah, where are they? Yeah, man.
But dropping the attachment to that has.
Yeah. And let's go back to relationships.
Mm-hmm.
What other things are there to talk about them besides what the purpose is?
Well, once again, like I think the question that comes up a lot, and I'd love to talk to you about it, and we've maybe covered it in Secret Club and some other stuff, but I think one of the challenges of a relationship is specifically when somebody's on sort of a journey of sort of self-awareness and the other partner's not, and not even just other partner, but a lot of time when your friends aren't. I think that can create a lot of challenges for people. And a lot of the time people like don't know what to do. They're like, oh, like, oh, what do I do? And I'm just like, man, that's sticky. That's really sticky. Because I know what you want to do. Like, we know what you want to do.
Is that leave?
No, like you just want to fix them. Like you're like, yo.
You want to fix them. You want to fix them.
Right?
Right.
Like you're like, I gotta fix them. Here you go. Do this class. Yeah. Come on this retreat. Do this thing the way I did it. Then you'll be good. Then you'll be a good person like me. We don't mean to say that, but we're kind of low key saying it. And that just creates infinitely more strain on the relationship. I think one of the biggest challenges that you run into also is when like you're both sort of in a state of like tumult. And then one of you starts like kind of dealing with yourself as it is. And you're like, oh, wow, things are kind of changing in my life. And the other one's just kind of stuck in their own shit. It's like, well, this is truthfully making a real impact on me. I want to share this with you. I think we do it out of a energy of love and compassion a lot of the time. But inadvertently, we don't allow people the space to have their own experience.
Yes. And I think there's like an assumption that is maybe rightfully so of like ignorance or something. Like there's like when we awaken, I've just seen this with other people. I feel like I had like a weird, I've been lucky to mostly have my friends like this with me, like
right
as we go. And I haven't had like any huge gaps, but what I've seen is there's always the, oh, I'm awake now and everyone else is asleep. There's no thought of like, maybe they're also awake and I just wasn't. Like, you know what I mean? We never, like, no one ever thinks that. They're not like, oh, wait, am I late to the party? They're like, I know the secrets. This is how I felt as like when it was happening to me, but I separated into like me and my friends and like adults for some reason. I mean, I was a young adult, but like I thought like we know this, but like our parents and like grown-ups and stuff, like nobody's ever heard of this before.
Yeah.
Something like as if people haven't been fucking discovering this for ages since the beginning of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's like a feeling of like this is like special, like I've been initiated and like no one else gets it.
Yeah, I
don't know why.
It's interesting. I definitely have been, oh my gosh, my cat. I've definitely been personally trying to sort of be more intentional about exploring maybe relationships that like that, because I do think it is a challenge, especially if you want to cultivate these like kind of friendships sometimes, to be able to be like, yo, like, so I read this thing that this shit was lit. And it's like, they're like, yeah, okay. And you're like, oh, right. That's not, you don't give a shit about this. Yeah, man. I don't even know if I have a point. I just know that I found it really useful to, I mean, we found each other. That worked.
We did. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. And I feel like I've had other interactions where it's like, I usually will like not talk about stuff and then I'll just overhear if someone else is like talking about it. And then I'll like try to get in with them or something. Or I don't know. Like, I don't know. It's also like a weird thing to just like start talking about. Because it's more of like just an experience and like, are you having a similar experience as that person? So it's more of like, what does this understanding do for your life, rather than like, can we conceptualize and intellectually like talk about the experience?
Yeah.
Right. It's like,
Mhm.
if you fundamentally believe that you're God and that like everything is good and fine and like working out and dandy, like in general, obviously we have our moods, like that's a different experience than someone who is afraid all of the time, or who like really buys into the terrors of the day or whatever, you know what I mean?
I think, and I think you're really pointing to the challenge of, which is, I think, the responsibility of someone who has that awareness is to realize like, yeah, that's dope too though. It's like not necessarily dope. I can look at the totality of it and see the constriction of it and the challenge it presents, right? But I'm always going to be able to serve that best, or to change anything best, by moving from a state of like sort of non-judgmental acceptance and curiosity about that, right? And not creating that separation, but truthfully kind of seeing myself as that, because we were and are all the time. And I absolutely, I love that. I want to bring up the thing that I want to talk about, which is essentially from, I just did a TikTok on it. The idea of what you want was coming up a lot for me today while I was studying. And the idea of, we talk about a lot, like the idea of how, like, oh, I don't know what I want because, and people go, you don't know what you want because you can't think how it could ever happen. If we drop the how, then what is it now, right?
Yeah, you're free to imagine.
People are like, oh, okay, right? But I noticed another one, which I think is the opposite polarity of that, which is because. There's a point in The Alchemist where the boy's talking to Fatima and he's like, yo, I'm about to go into the desert and go do some dope shit, but I want to tell you I love you. And she's like, and he's like, so I love you because, and she's like, stops him. She's like, shh. One is loved because one is loved. And then he goes on this whole diatribe. He's like, no, well, yeah, but like, I love you because this happened and this happened and this happened and this happened. And she's like, just like a woman, she's like, you'll catch it the next time, sweetie.
Yeah.
And it was fucking brilliant. I was like, oh my God, yes.
Yeah.
Because, right, I think a lot of the time not knowing what you want can get steeped in this idea of deservedness, right? There has to be a because. My cousin, is cousin leaving?
Yeah, she's leaving. Everyone say bye. Can you hear the bark? Cousin and dog are leaving.
Hi, David. Bye, David.
I don't know if you can, you can hear. Okay.
Can't wait to talk more Kabbalah someday.
Oh my gosh, I didn't know she was there the whole time. I would have like.
I had my headphones.
Yeah, she wasn't really listening.
Oh good, oh good. I was like, I really want her to like me.
Yeah, sorry, what?
Because I think is an attachment, or rather an asking of permission of the past. When we need our past to give us permission to create our now. Which I think is really interesting.
Yes. And I feel like that also kind of ties in with like the purpose thing that we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Right? Like, sorry, I have to rearrange because my computer is going to die and I have to plug it in. So I apologize for like the very distracting experience.
It's all a G.
Yes, I think. Yeah, and it's like there's always this need to kind of like explain ourselves or prove ourselves, or like oh, I'm here for a purpose, or because if I didn't have a purpose, why would I be here? Why would I deserve to be here, or why would I uh I don't know, like be so special to be here, or like there's like an uncomfortability maybe with just being allowed or being like chosen.
Literally just being, right? Like there's no
Yeah.
uncomfortableness with being. I think like we're pointing to that weird imposter syndrome thing too, right? The idea that all that is a misalignment, or rather the idea that I need my external stuff to give me permission to exist within the space that I'm currently within, right? It comes from, I feel like, over-identifying with the material stuff, with the information, with the data, right? Oh, my parents and then I studied this and then this and then this. And because of all this stuff, then I get to be.
You know, yeah, this is like my main thing, I think. There's been so many times where I've like wanted to do something, but it just seems so like not realistic, or not like, I don't know, like my most recent one was like I really wanted to go apprentice with this company that does like natural building. Like they just build like these like natural homes out of like dirt. you know?
Wait. So we'll talk to me after this, because I think one of Sam's friends does this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, we'll talk after. But there's this place, in case anyone wants to look it up, called Cal Earth Institute. And I had like gone to like a couple workshops there, and I had like applied for this apprenticeship position, and I like really wanted to do it, but I just kept being like, but why? Like it makes no sense. Like, am I really gonna like build like a home out of dirt? Like it felt very like far-fetched in a way, but it was like making me so happy to think about doing it. And I ended up not doing it because this other opportunity that came made more sense, like logically in my brain. You know what I mean? But it's like,
yeah.
So there was like this need in me to be like, I want this because I didn't have that because, other than like it makes me happy.
I want to do it.
Like, you know, so I feel like I just relate to that concept so much of being like, oh, I want to do this, but I don't know how, or like, I want to do this, but I don't know why. So this like need for the how and the why in order to like go.
Yeah. What's the reason? Oh man,
Yeah.
Can I tell you, just like high key, whenever you talk about going off and doing some crazy shit like that, I'm always like super sad. I'm like, man, like, but like, don't go though. I just like, I'm like, but like, yeah, that sounds real. You should totally do that, but like, don't, you know.
Aww.
But
you can come with me. I'll build you a little natural house.
Chill in the house. Too scared. Yeah, man, I feel that in a real way. I was gonna say, you reminded me of the sort of fear that comes with, I lost it completely. I think I was gonna say the fear that comes with being attached to the because can be so debilitating, but it also, I think it shows up. Oh, it shows up in our everyday life, I think, in another way in our everyday life, in hesitation. When we like hesitate, I think that book, it's a really cool book called, I don't remember what it's called, but it's a lady with this method where she talks about 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. She has a couple of books. You know what I'm talking about?
I don't know. It like sparked a thing, and then I was like, maybe I don't know.
What's her name? Anyways,
how do you even search for that? Just search 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Like,
no, it's not even that's a grounding thing. I'm thinking of like this chick who has this really great book where she talks about how she changed her life by essentially cutting out hesitation in her life. And the way that she did it was, when she decided to do something, she just gave herself like 5 seconds and did like a blast off thing. And I can't remember the name of the book right now. But cool. Mel Robbins, thank you. Mel Robbins' book, 5 second rule. That's what it is. Thank you. So I think when we take longer than that, she talks about how your mind looks for reasons, your brain looks for reasons for you not to do something when you hesitate.
Mhm.
And a lot of the time, those reasons are the because
Yeah.
they're fucking infinite.
This goes back to my leg thing that I wanted to talk about.
Mhm.
Because I recently had this experience. Well, David knows this, but for everyone listening, I recently pulled my calf muscle. And so I couldn't walk for like a week and a half. And then I was sort of able to like hobble on one toe. And then I was like finally able to put my foot flat on the ground, but I like couldn't put any weight on it. And I went to the chiropractor, and this woman was there who's like a healer who just sees my chiropractor. She doesn't work there. And she saw me on my crutch and she was like, oh, let me come over, like, let me work on your leg.
I swear you only meet these fucking people, Sarah. I never meet these. Like, you just attract, that's just the vibe you're on. And
I know her.
jealous.
I know her from like she's like a friend, like my parents know her.
Of course.
So I am in a whole like a spiritual community of like crazy healers and stuff. But so she like pulls energy out, and then she's like massaging like the leg, and then she's like, okay, try now. And I like stand, and I'm like, oh my God, I can like totally stand. I can like sort of walk. And then she's like, okay, let me do it again. And then I like can walk. And it was such a crazy like feeling after 2 weeks at this point of not being able to like stand on both my feet, to like be able to do that and like to be able to walk. And it felt like all this like energy was moving, and I was just really reflecting on it, over the next few days. And it was reminding me of like this exact thing of like things that we do in our head, where it's like we have these little constrictions that are like, or like hesitancies that are like, well, I can't do that because I don't know how. I can't do that because I don't know why, blah, blah, blah. And like these like things that we have the impulse to do them, but we just automatically hold ourselves back. And then when we kind of can let that go, it's like how much freedom opens up. And that was like sort of the experience that I had physically with my leg. And sort of like then finally being able to like how much freedom I had when I was like, oh, I can stand on my leg. But it was like I still had that hesitancy kind of, because I had been used to not being able to. So I didn't know like where my pain was anymore. So I feel like we like build up these things where we're like, there's pain there. Or like, have you heard this story? I don't know if it's a story or like a moral, I don't know. So like where they say like an elephant, if an elephant is like chained to a fence, let's just say, as a baby, and it can't, break the chain, when it gets bigger, it actually can break the chain just because it's like bigger and stronger, but they don't actually need to like change the chain because the elephant won't, because it thinks that it can't. It's so, it was trained as a baby that it couldn't break the chain. So even though now it can, it won't even try.
Yeah.
It's like that, but like all the time with everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh. Yeah. I think, man, fuck, there's so many things that you said. For me, I remember sort of in the beginning of my awakening process, like going the complete opposite direction of that and having so much fucking fun. Just because all I knew was like, I can do anything.
Yeah.
Wait. Anything? Anything.
Did you fly? Because I've always wanted to fly.
Dude, I was so mad that I didn't. I got so distracted with other stuff, and I was like, I'll get to flying. It's like the least interesting thing for me right now. I promise you, I was like, I could probably figure that out, but I'm doing this other stuff. But I really just went, like, I systematically went through my life, and everything that I had ever wanted to be like, oh, can I do this? I just started doing it. And I was like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can do that. And sort of pushing through that sort of uncomfortability and that sort of all the reasons why I couldn't do something, all the reasons why you can't do something. I think when we have the opportunity to sort of drop that, I mean, it's crazy. It's a absolute game changer. And I love that you fucking, it's they are sort of self-limiting, not sort of, they are, right? We that hesitation is a practice, sort of, that limitation is practice for your whole life.
Hmm.
Letting that go is lit though. And I think like there are definitely areas that we do,
Yeah.
right?
That we do what?
Let go.
Limit ourselves?
Don't limit ourselves. But there are tons of areas where we
Limit and then let go.
we're just like we just kind of do
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I love finding those
Mhm.
instances. Almost for me, creatively, I find that like if I have a dope idea that I think is really dope, if I don't act on it, it will just like die or go away.
Yeah.
Or I'll become so I won't be able to do anything until I get it out somewhere. Like I'll become so obsessed
Totally.
with it that I'll just, you know what I mean? It just wants to be born and it just be like, there's no space
Mhm.
here for anything else until this comes out. So I don't know what you waiting on. You better figure this out. And I'm like, fuck,
Yeah. I am definitely someone who like I tend to think about something for like months, if not years, before I do it. But like either obsessively, usually obsessed, or it'll like I'll be really into it and then I'll kind of like go away and then I'll come back and then I'll kind of go away and then I'll come back and finally I'll just be like, I'm doing something tomorrow. Like have to kind of force myself to do
Same.
it. And then
Same.
it's usually like easy. Like once you do it.
well, I mean, I feel like you're like really good at stuff. So I feel
Well,
like
I don't know.
I feel like when you actually do stuff, it's like you should. I mean, I think the vulnerability of just being complete, just utter trash at stuff
Totally.
is. But once again, I feel like the resistance to that is the idea that, which stems from the over-identification with the material, which is being too identified with this idea that something's got to be this final, total, complete thing, right? And
Yeah.
that attachment to that idea instead of dealing with things as they are and knowing at no point are you ever going to be like in everything. There's nobody who's like in any field ever who's like, I did it, I'm done. Like the second you do that, that's a wrap for you.
Yeah. And completing things never feels that good. Also, like it never it doesn't last. It's like not it's never as good as you want it to be.
Right. If you think that completing that thing is going to be a thing that makes you like, oh, like I get it. It's like, it's never going to be enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, we're about to roll. Any questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas that people want to throw in the room? Write it down, otherwise it goes away. Just to write it down.
Where are we streaming right now?
We're on YouTube and on TikTok right now. What's up,
TikTok.
YouTube? What up, TikTok? Gang, gang, gang. Thoughts?
TikTok, show up.
shout out TikTok. Thanks for the Mel Robbins info, because I couldn't remember the name to save my life. I'm reading one of her other book, her second book right now, which I think is really dope. Man, I don't know how to do this other thing over here. Be here, be there, or be square. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I don't know. Any ideas, Sarah? Anything? Or we can piece it. We can go.
I honestly felt like we covered everything in the first 5 minutes of you like explaining Yahweh and Yeshua. Yeshua?
Yeah, Yeshua. No. Sure.
Is that what it is? What his name is?
Yeshua. Yeshua.
Jesus.
Yeah, Jesus, the homie.
The homie. Of that guy.
Yeah, man. Well, thanks for rocking with us, y'all. Appreciate it. If y'all enjoyed it, please check out the Patreon and the TikTok at Motivational Speaker. Sarah, do you have anything you want to throw out, promote?
I have nothing. I'm here only, and then I disappear.
She is a ethereal, mystical human, and you know she'll show up when you need her. Just
yeah, exactly. Just call me in your dreams. And
call her in your dreams and she'll show up. No, stop, don't do that, because somebody will do that and you'll end up dream jumping to somebody and be like, hey, having a weird thing.
That would be cool.
Maybe.
Would it? I don't know.
That might be scary. Cool. Thank y'all so much. TikTok, we'll be back. I'll do some live tomorrow. We'll have some fun. We got a lot going on. Thank y'all so much for rocking with us tonight, and we'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye, guys. Good night. And we're done here, and we're done